Hi everyone, and welcome here today for what I hope will be a very interesting session about transport. Very exciting day today here at COP26. It's Transport Day. It's all about transport. Early in the morning we had the launch of the Global Memorandum of Understanding for heavy duty, the Zero Emission Vehicles Declaration. Media is full of transport today, and let's just hope to keep that momentum going. And the talk of the town is really zero emission transitioning in any way, shape or form. Really happy to be joined today by a fantastic panel of exactly the people who will help us get there. Very excited. We also have the huge benefit of having both passenger vehicles and heavy duty represented here today, with all the different difficulties and opportunities they represent. But before I invite our fantastic panel on stage today, I actually have an extra treat for you all. Fresh from negotiations, and he will be dashing off quite soon. We have Mr. Matthias Fromey, head of the delegation of UNFCCC. Matthias, welcome.
Thank you.
And you will tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Where we are, what's going on. Well,
please,
thanks so much for asking me to join you today. As you said, we're sort of in the midst of negotiations right now. And my minister, apologies for Minister Bula not being able to join you. He's chairing, together with his Egyptian colleague, ministerial consultations on finance ongoing at the moment. So we have a busy day ahead of us. But as you said, it's also Transport Day, and it's good to see the engagement we're seeing from the private sector. I'm so proud to see 4 CEOs of Swedish leading companies being present here today to be able to showcase to us here at COP26, but also to global partners, what Sweden can offer in terms of the supporting and facilitating the transition to net zero and climate neutrality globally. And I think that's really one of the key messages we see coming out of COP26. With all these pavilions here, the strong engagement of the private sector and support and working together with the public sector in driving the transition, and we, of course, from the public sector, putting the right policies in place, incentivizing action from the private sector. And I hope that is also something which we can see reflected in the decisions coming out of COP26. Going into the negotiations again, we just had what we call the cover decisions coming out this morning, new drafts, which will be probably negotiating overnight. So when we come out of this, hopefully on Friday afternoon, we will then see sort of what kind of path that COP26 will be paving ahead for 2030, which is, as we know, the decade of action. And I think here again, seeing the engagement and all the fantastic work that Swedish business and specifically within the transport sector are making to show what Sweden can do as a leader in climate action, and the kind of leadership that we can provide globally, working together with partners across the world. And I think also highlighting maybe the Race to Zero initiative, where a number of Swedish companies have been joining, and the various activities which Race to Zero has been highlighting here at COP26. We're also hearing, just maybe as a final note, many calls from private sector actors on a global price on carbon. As you know, we're negotiating Article 6, which will put in place carbon markets globally. We're also hoping to see further action on nations establishing regulatory frameworks which would then lead to pricing on carbon in all jurisdictions across the world. We're having initiatives like the Coalition of Finance Ministers, which is working to share experiences on carbon pricing, where Sweden is leading that particular work. So coming together, putting these kind of regulatory practices in place, we hope to be supporting also from the policy side in driving this kind of action, and wishing you all the best for your work today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Really interesting. No secrets you want to spill here? Just inside information?
No
You're among
secrets.
Friends, no?
Just bring us all the support we can get in order to reach net zero globally.
That we can do. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're terribly busy. Thank you. So with that, I would like to welcome up to stage what actually might be the most fantastic panel I've seen at COP so far, and it is the second last day, so that's saying a lot. So please join me on stage, Mr. Håkan Samuelsson, CEO of Volvo Cars, Thomas Ingelroth, CEO of Polestar, Martin Lundstedt, CEO of Volvo Group, Christian Levin, CEO of Scania. You can tell by now it's a pretty amazing panel. And Jakob Lundgren, a political expert in climate issues for the Swedish Minister of Environment. Thank you. There's loads of us, yeah? You're good? So before we jump into it, I would of course like to ask you, we just heard Matthias here talk about the negotiations. Any reflections from your side? Maybe actually we'll start down here with the political expert. So what's your reflection on what you heard? And if I might add also, what do we need from governments supporting OEMs in accelerating the zero-emission vehicle transition?
Well, let me start with the first question. What we need from the COP is obviously action. We need a clear pathway towards keeping in line with the targets set out within the Paris Agreement, trying to achieve limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees. And what we can do as governments, obviously, within this framework is enhancing the rate of mitigation, and within the framework of what can OEMs do, what can we do for OEMs. From a Swedish perspective, joining this panel, we're quite in a unique position where many countries that have automotive industries, that have heavy transport industries, are pushing against stricter regulations, more ambitious regulations. We come from a position of power, where we are one of the few nations that can actually put forward realistic, ambitious goals on transportation, and having the backing of an automotive industry that wants to achieve these goals and have realistic plans for investing in these measures. We'll get more into details, I'm sure, but I'll like to start by that.
Right, perfect. So from the rest of the group, we'll just go down, Martin, and then Håkan. Any reflections?
No, I think we have been discussing that in a couple of panels that it is important now to bring forward the pathway for Paris. I mean, that has been a discussion up to 2050. That is important. We all know what that means. But as Matthias said, this is a decade of execution. We are 6 years down the road, and the speed is not good enough, to be fair. And therefore, I mean, we are expecting that as we have now more clear roadmaps for 2025, 2030 will also be aligned with what will come out from COP26 on a global, regional and national level.
Another reflection from my side. I mean, if you looked into the COP meetings, they have been going on for many, many years. Very good to focus on this very big problem we have, but there's been a lot of talks about visions and targets. And that's where I hear now it's more focus on action, which I think is needed, and also that there is more support from the companies. Because if the companies really sees this as an opportunity and want to do it, I think that will make a very big difference. I must also reflect on the people standing here representing 4 Swedish companies, which we have four companies
Quite
in
impressive.
Sweden,
Quite impressive.
and they are stronger than in many years. And why? Because all 4 of them sees now the business opportunity in what's happening, and I think that's a very positive reflection.
Fully agree. Christian?
I think the most important thing that Matthias said was the price of carbon. I think that is the single most important take, and I think especially for the commercial vehicle sector, where the buying of a commercial vehicle is an investment in a machine that should generate return, and we need to get that balance right now. So who chooses the fossil way should pay for it, and who chooses the low emission or the zero emission way should get a benefit. And I think if COP can achieve a big step in that direction, it would facilitate tremendously the implementation that is so badly needed.
Perfect. And Thomas?
Yeah, I liked a lot the part about leading, because I think that's indeed the opportunity that Sweden has. It's in our name, Polestar is the guiding star. I think generally Sweden, with the industry, was going really hand in hand with the politicians, driving an ambitious agenda is a big opportunity for us to be leading in the world doing so.
Great. Fantastic. There's loads to dive into, of course. We don't have unlimited time, unfortunately. So let's start with you, Håkan, actually, because Volvo Cars is aiming for 100% fully electric vehicles 2030 globally. It's one of the most ambitious targets on the market, if not the most ambitious target. But what led you to make that decision, and what do you see as main opportunities also for other OEMs in rapidly phasing out the internal combustion engine technology?
I think you have to see this has been, of course, a journey in the company, thousands of people with different ideas about the future, and we have been working, of course, to reducing CO2 and reducing NOx and so on. But say 3 years ago, we suddenly saw, wow, this is not just reducing emissions, this is also a business opportunity. We could do here what we did with safety and seatbelts and airbags 30 years ago, making that part of our brand values and really see suddenly something that was posed on us became an opportunity for us to be stronger, and I think that was a sort of tipping point for us, and I think really it should be the tipping point. I think all of us in these 4 companies agree this is a huge opportunity for the European car industry to really to take a lead globally, and we should definitely, and I think more and more are stop seeing it as something that's imposed on us. This is an opportunity.
It is.
And it was good for our company. We realized that we want to be in the lead, but the more that follow, the better, because we need the famous infrastructure, we need more batteries, we need the primary energy, which is fossil free. So there's a lot of things, but this is somebody we start, and then I think we will come into a positive spiral.
Of course, someone always has to start. We saw it with the cell phones once upon a time, and we'll see it with the vehicle. So, but so far for you, Håkan, has it made sense as a business? Is it good business?
Yes, I mean, we are bigger than ever. I mean, we're double size compared with 8 years ago, and our ambitious agenda, the electrification, has made sense. We sell now 40% of all cars are chargeable in Europe. California, 65%. And so we are on our way, and now we are rolling out as fast as we can. The all electric is still just around 5%, but they will come. Mid-decade, half of the cars will be all electric, and then 30, all of them.
I think it's so important
we are on
to
our
hear
way.
that. Yeah, it's amazing. Thomas, you're the CEO of a pure electric car company, so that's done already for you, 100% ZEV sales achieved. But what do you see as the main barriers or issues when it comes to making battery electric the most attractive choice for consumers?
Well, our consumers clearly need attractive cars. That's easy, that's what we can do. But for them to really get onto that journey, especially if it's their first EV, I think there are 3 things that they need. One thing is, of course, charging infrastructure, no question. And the second thing, and that we can influence as the industry leaders, is a very clear direction that they see, yes, we all believe that that is the future. For them to make that heavy investment into that most expensive good that you pay for after your house, and really know that that EV is what we all believe is the future. I think that is what they expect as well, that confirmation. And I think the car industry is just about in giving it them, but then when I see that some even didn't sign today, they're still not there really committing to it. And of course the third thing is that you actually, of course, financially are not worse than buying a combustion engine car. So of course that has to be leveled to help the personal decision for people to go into electrification.
An amazing design doesn't hurt either, right?
I will not say that's the easy part, but that's what we take care of, yeah?
Of course. So turning then to our, I was about to say heavier friends, that's not what I meant, but heavy duty friends. So I think we all can understand that there are differences between passenger vehicles and making them electric and the heavy duty segment. But could you maybe describe a bit more, like what challenges are specific for your segment and how can we address them? And Christian, I'll start with you. And then we'll see if Martin gives the same answer.
Yeah, let's see that. No, but I think I have to then go back to the investment and the TCO model. I mean, our customers buy transport equipment because it's part of their business, and they need to be able to do that in a profitable way. And I think when you buy a car, when I buy a car, I buy that a lot based on emotions and styling and other values that are certainly just marginal to our customers. So I think that will really be the challenge. Obviously, a battery electric vehicle today is substantially more expensive. It is cheaper to operate though, because electricity or electric energy is much cheaper than fossil diesel, but not cheap enough. So I think that is actually the main reason. I mean, don't think of our vehicles as vehicles. Think of them as machines, that are part of a value chain. I think that is the difference. And there are a lot of similarities when it comes to technology. We can learn from each other in the electrification journey around battery cells and other technologies. But that's, I would say, and let's see if Martin agrees, but I'm quite sure that is the big difference.
What would you say, Martin? How can we address also the challenges we see?
No, but first and foremost, I do agree, Christian, of course. I mean, everything is 10 times a car, basically. I mean, 10 times the operating time during a year, 10 times the weight, or I mean, the whole idea is to carry goods, so people, passengers. It is about the life length and durability, etc. But that is also good for us, because since it is actually a P&L, a profit and loss statement of every truck, you can have a very good conversation also with our transporters and also the transport buyers, right? What is it worth for the cost of the final product? And where we really look at that, actually the logistical proportion of the final product is rather low. I mean, if you have a 15 to 20% higher cost per kilometer ride for a battery electric, that means maybe 0.5 to 1% of the final product price if we just drop it through. And that is, I mean, many, of course, ready to pay. Then you cannot do that for everything, but there is a great opportunity for a conversation like that. And also that companies, and I think it will be a consumer pool, but also that companies are committing themselves. I mean, to Christian's point about the price on carbon, of course we adhere to that, global markets, but also that corporates are putting price on carbon, because they are realizing that this is the future. So even if you have a 67 trade today on the ETS system in the traded sectors, you have an actually higher price in many internal calculation, which is good news for us all. So again, what makes us excited, I mean, in the heavy side, logistics will continue to increase. Why? Because we have all the mega trends of increasing populations, urbanization, e-commerce, etc. It needs to be considerably more sustainable, and that is done through electrification, through hydrogen electrified, and through other means together, right? So super exciting times. We are into serial production, all of us now. We are paving the way also in the heavy-duty sector. And I have to end on one thing. I got emotional today when I talked to a journalist about March 2020. And we tend to forget that also. I mean, COVID times, I was standing in Lundby in Gothenburg looking over the port areas, and it was completely empty because we were scared, right? And no traffic, no persons out walking, anything. And I actually, sorry being a little bit emotional, but I did see the Stena ferry leaving Gothenburg. And we need to understand the importance of transports also for us, for driving true prosperity, but we need to have a sustainable prosperity.
Very good, thank you, and thank you for sharing that. So I think it's fair to say, and we all agree, that Swedish companies taking the lead, obviously showing the way. The EU Commission is aiming for a de facto ban of new internal combustion engine vehicle sales by 2035, and Sweden has set an even more ambitious target with a ban by 2030. So Jacob, looking at you, what's the reasoning behind that?
Looking at the fact that we need to mitigate emissions quickly, looking at what is possible, where can we act the quickest. It's a political reality that looking at transportation worldwide, 90% is fossil fuel energy. Looking at our emissions in Sweden, it's over 30% is transportation. Looking at the EU as a whole, it's about 28%. And these are emissions where we know we have the technology. We can look at our companies in Sweden. We see that we have companies that are willing to put forward the investments, that believe in this transition. And we know that we can do it fairly fast. And beyond that, we know that the cars that will be sold by 2035 or 2030, or the trucks that will be sold by then, they will be on the roads for a very long time, 17 years on average for cars sold in Sweden. So if you want to have zero emissions by 2050, it makes sense that the combustion engine is gone long before that. And to do so, obviously we need regulations on not only national level, but on a European level, an EU level, in order for these men here to actually make their investments make sense. Sweden is a small market, big picture. California moving in this direction, the UK announcing similar targets, EU moving in this direction. That is necessary in order to rapidly mitigate emissions from the transportation sector.
And I think Sweden is definitely a front runner here. And the ones you name, California moving, New York State setting targets. But if we take a holistic view, and we're here at COP, it's very international. What would you say, as an expert in this area, are governments generally doing enough? I mean, we like to focus on the front runners, but this is global, we're all global companies. Are governments in general doing enough?
No, I don't think so. I think, and we'll get into that more, when it comes to infrastructure, from a private perspective, from a personal perspective, you need to feel certain that the car you choose to drive, you can charge it wherever, whenever you need to. We often focus on rural areas when it comes to that issue, but really, when it comes down to full electrification, cities will be the difficult task to tackle due to electrical grid limitations, due to the fact that it's difficult to find public spots to build infrastructure. And more so when it comes to the heavy duty side, that is more difficult. There we have to look at value chains, and we have to look at partnerships with industry to localize where are these investments needed first, where do they make sense first in order for the entire infrastructure to work, and how can we create a market for these vehicles that makes sense from a support chain perspective. And I think the leadership industry group that Sweden has, together with India, has a focus that partnership with companies, between companies, along the entire value chain, finding these solutions. And more countries need to step up and do more in that area. In Sweden, we've begun, but there's still a lot more to do.
Great. Martin, I see you're eager to get in.
No, but I just have to say on that, which is very positive, you said it's even more on the heavy duty side. Together with Christian and with Martin and the team from Daimler, we are actually building out now through a joint venture the pan-European charging infrastructure for heavy duty. We have millions of units connected, so we know where we need to put it because there are very certain flows. What we need from policy makers, and not party politics, but policy makers, is a long-term view on permissions. Because accelerate, what does that mean? It means speed up the speed. That is what acceleration is. And speed today is too low, so we have to speed up the speed. So we need that, and sustainability efficiencies into competition legislation so we can cooperate as peers. And then as you say, grid, and green generation. But we will build it out. The good news is that we have super big interest from a lot of different actors to participate, right, in investing in this. Financial, but also industry actors, upstream and downstream partners. So I think there will be a lot of money, but what we really need from you is the permissions, the speed to get the permissions and the spot, etc., the grid, and then we do it together. So
you're now going to have to represent all governments when the questions come. So, Håkan, looking at you then, if we talk about charging infrastructure, obviously one of the main issues. We talk about the grid, also clean energy to go into that grid. What's your view on the division of responsibilities here, really, between businesses on the one side and governments on the other?
A bit reflecting on the other question as well. I think it's really a clear, credible signal to us in the industry, then we will move. And the market economy and companies are quite good in speed. We don't need to be worried about that. We just need to come to a point where we decide, okay, because we talk not the cars we are selling today. We talk about developing the ones we will sell 26, 27. So if we believe that will be electric, we will do it. If charging infrastructure companies believe the market will be electric, they will speed up. So I think for politicians, try to agree on a credible common international goal. Clear goal, no more combustion. If it's 35, 33, 36, really, I don't think it's that important. Companies will still move. So that's one thing. And then also to politicians, be also aware of that one of the absolute, for the consumer, most important thing with electric cars is a low price of electricity.
So, delegates, we kindly remind you to wear your face mask over your mouth and nose at all times during your time at the conference.
Good.
Unless you're seated in a room with appropriate distance. While eating or drinking, we are medically exempt. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because I had such an important message, I didn't want to
But
be
now everyone's
diluted.
been heavy
And that
on your
is
last
to
words.
be politician. Try to resist the temptation to tax electrification, the electricity. Because I mean that is for the consumer very, very important. And that will drive the development. And more expensive electricity will slow down the transition. So I think that be careful with the tax, give us a clear signal.
And Thomas, I will put the same question to you. The, collaboration or division of responsibility, how you want to call it, between businesses and governments, who is responsible for what?
Well, I have another addition, a proposal for you, what could be supportive, because we talk now a lot about electrification and just getting there, and you can understand we think a lot about beyond that thing. I mean, for us electrification is given, that is what we live as our daily life. What is the next thing? And the next thing is really to get electrified cars much more sustainable, meaning the carbon footprint of the electric car down. And here standard, a really unified life cycle assessment of what a car has as a carbon footprint. We are struggling, Volvo, Polestar, we actually did a quite honest analysis of it. That is abused by others. Using that as like a bad example actually is a very good example that we were that honest. We need that honesty from the whole industry. We need an honest standard about judging and measuring the life cycle burden of an electric car. That will be for the future of decision for the customers and everything really important. For the credibility of our industry, it will be really important to not get into another diesel scandal kind of situation. So here we need support in finding the right measurement tools.
Very good point, very good point. Christian, I feel everyone had their turn to come with a wish list here. I will give it to you too. What would you like to see?
I think we touched on most of the points actually. So it's the price on carbon, it's the grid, it's the green energy. I think maybe additionally, as we and what Thomas is touching on in our sector, I mean, what is the division between politics and business? It's really don't choose the technology for us. Put the levels. What are we asking for? How does the roadmap look long term? But let us choose the technology to be applied, because that we're good at. And in our case, then particularly look at the well-to-wheel perspective. Don't go for the tailpipe. So even if we today signed up to this memorandum of understanding to try to reach 40% with 90% of the sales for heavy commercial vehicles as well, that's more a symbolic thing to say, yes, the technology will be there. That will not be the problem. The technology will hopefully be there 2030 and honestly even before that. But that technology will only be applied if we have the regulatory framework to actually support it. And I think that is back to the 3 points. That is so very, very critical that we get that through now. Otherwise, the transition will not happen, not in our sector. Even if, you're right, Martin, even if it's sometimes a marginal cost on the liter of milk that we transport, and I think all of us as consumers, we would say we pay 1 euro or 1 euro cent extra. That's not the problem. But the competition is so tough in most of the transport sectors. So someone in that value chain will say, no, I will not take it. I will go with the cheaper solution. And that's where you come in, really.
But quite many will actually take that.
No, you're right. And we see that. I mean, absolutely, I'm not arguing against you. We see that in some sectors we have cost parity now.
No, but that is what I mean.
Today. And that's why you sell a few and we sell a few already battery electric vehicles. But we need to have more of them.
Absolutely.
And we need support, especially in the transport logistic part of the chain, and not just in the ones who transport for their own needs, so to say. And to your point, also the ones, all of us who buy transport, that will have a huge impact. As we all go science-based, we're all part of someone else's value chain. And when we start to look at our own emissions, as we're doing, looking at how much transport we buy, it's enormous, and the influence we can do there is huge. So, yeah.
But I think that's a good point. I heard you on another panel a few months back, and you made the point that no more discussion about the chicken and egg, because the egg is here. We can deliver the egg, so it's now the chicken we need.
No, that's exactly the point. I mean, the technology is available, and I think that's also, of course, the message, Jakob. Sorry to have to represent the whole world of politics, but it's maybe a new situation where we were formerly always pushed by politicians to go to emission levels or weights and dimensions, and now we say we are ready. What are you waiting for? So it's a new situation where we're pushing policymakers to act faster, because then we can make the transition, and we should be very proud of that. I mean, I think that's something really cool, and again, Swedish industry is at the forefront, whether we speak about cars or commercial vehicles. We're actually driving this change, and for Sweden as a nation that you were into, Håkan, this could really be a game changer. This could be job creation, this could be wealth for the future. And that I'm at least very proud of.
I think you're touching on a lot of themes. There's been a lot of talk in the past 2 weeks, but especially maybe around Transport Day, not only about the zero-emission vehicle itself, but like you, Thomas, it's about supply chain, it's about everything. It's also about just transition. It's about good jobs. It's about the whole ecosystem around it. And collaboration has been a reoccurring theme over and over again. So what types of collaboration will we see? Because roles and responsibilities are changing. The whole landscape in the transport industry is somewhat changing. The boxes we were all put in at one point doesn't really fit anymore. Already mentioned some collaboration. We're actually competing OEMs are coming together to do things together, which was unthinkable 10 years ago, maybe. Looking a little bit towards the future then, what type of new radical collaborations do you think we'll see? I'll start with you, Thomas.
Yeah, okay, one thing which is very crucial is, of course, to work together with the supply chain. I mean, that collaboration in getting the CO2 footprint down is fully dependent on us working together with the supply chain, and the sourcing, the mining, everything is included, and us as an OEM has to really deeply dive into it and work it. Just would like to add one little comment to our quite enthusiastic round before. I mean, we really should not forget one thing. I mean, it's as well competition who is driving us into doing that, because if we don't get into that train, I mean, the competition will just simply blow us away, and that is not maybe the traditional competition, but the new competition which is coming. So that's another thing of driving this agenda strongly.
Yes, move or get past, basically. Håkan, what about you? Any radical collaborations in the near future? Or far future?
Yes, probably. I think we'll change a lot in the whole value chain from mine to consumers. I mean, today we have a cooperation structure based on the modules we have or had, gearbox, engine, heating and so on, and each has its own control unit. I mean, the future will be much more centrally controlled, much more software requiring new type of partnerships. New components come in, batteries, new partnerships, and also going to the consumer for the car business will also change. Consumers want transparency, want to have a direct communication with us, So we have to be much more available online, and our retail partners will then still be there, of course, but will concentrate on service and delivery. So everything will be much more digital and changed in the benefit of the consumer really at the end, who wants to understand, what do I get, what is the price, when can I get it? 3 crucial questions we need to be able in answering.
And for the heavy duty segment, then, a very traditional industry in many ways. My day job is with another large Swedish company, a home furnishing retailer, a global one too. And we have discovered that we have to engage much more. We're a purchaser of transport services, but in the past 4 years I have learned more about AC/DC charging, the space in the vehicles, the torque of the vehicle, everything than I ever wanted, to be honest. So for the more traditional heavy duty side, what does it mean when we say radical collaboration? What will we see?
If I may start, first and foremost, I don't think it's very traditional. I think it has been a lot of innovation when it comes to transportation, given the fact that it's a B2B model. A lot of the logic that we see in the automotive or passenger car side is very similar. I think the most important collaboration, apart from what Thomas and Håkan has been alluded to, and that is very similar basically, is that we have been competing on a brown platform with incremental improvements, right? And we have done well on that. But that has not led us in the right direction in all metrics, and in particular in the sustainability metrics. But it has led us, in quality, in efficiency, in cost, so affordability, energy efficiency, circularity to a big extent, many different things. But we need now to move to a green platform and there continue to compete, to Thomas' point, to drive this type of innovation. And that collaboration is a true collaboration between societies, governments and industrial peers to do that. I mean, famous grid, but it's also about standards for, how do we actually disclose and follow different things. Standards for, even the interface of charging, what have you, so you can actually compete on this open platform. And that leads us also to this value chain type of collaboration. We delivered the first fossil-free steel Arctic hauler or mining hauler, autonomous and electric. And it has, we have already been delivering electric trucks, but that is Vattenfall, it's LKAB, it's SSAB, it's us, and it's the downstream partners. And this is amazing what will happen, because then you start to look at all the waste elements that exist in that value chain. And you are moving from a transactional to a partnership type of value chain. Because the time is over, the era of silos is over. Time to sit and play cards between selling and purchasing and negotiate the last percentage. It's just, to be frank, bullshit.
Right. And Christian, Scania declared a partnership with different stakeholders throughout the value chain a few years ago already in the beautiful archipelago of Stockholm. Is that the model for the future?
I can only echo what Martin is saying. There will be much more of collaborative business models and less of horse trading, for sure. But I would, if I should highlight anything that I believe will happen going forward, it's more on the traditional partnership that we're actually already very good at, and that is with our traditional customers and the customer's customer. Because the transition, even if we find cost parity already today in some segment, we will certainly have charging infrastructure, green energy, all of that in place, and I can promise you that most of our customers will still hesitate and say, hey, with my thin margin business, will reliability be there? Will there be service people trained and ready to help me when something happens? What is the residual value of such a vehicle? Do you split residual value between the battery and the rest of the vehicle? All of that will need a firm answer, and I think we will have to, regardless if it's Volvo or Scania, we will have to take much more responsibility and hold hands with our traditional customers in a new type of partnership. Maybe with warranties or guarantees or maybe a new business model even, so that they actually dare to make the transition. And when we have that in place, then the transition can also be very fast. And I think that is something that not so many people yet think about. They think that it will show the calculation and it will be automatic. But we already see this hesitation amongst customers, even when the customer's customer is pushing, saying, hey, this is what we need. And maybe even when they offer long contract, which they usually don't, by the way. IKEA.
I mean, we're working on
I
doing
know.
that.
I know.
No,
So-
but you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Right, we don't have much time left, and this will be the hardest part now, because I will put a question, same question to all of you, and you have to answer it in 3 sentences or less, but tops 3 sentences, yeah? And that will be the roundup of our day here today. So, you know, we'll start down there with you, Jacob. He's like, oh my God, why did I come to this panel? And then we'll work. So Thomas, good for you. You have, and so we will expect from you, Thomas, the sound bite that everyone can take home that will go viral today. But in 3 sentences or less. So, how should OEMs and governments work together to accelerate the zero-emission vehicle transition?
The case for demand, we're talking mitigation, it's also air quality in developing countries. It needs to be global. The case for value chains, it needs to be clean energy, it needs to be cost efficient, and there needs to be reliable infrastructure. And the third one is, it needs to be faster. That means faster permits, faster electrification, faster building and developing electrical grids. And realistically, we need a faster implementation of pricing on emissions.
You got a lot in 3 sentences. Well done, well done. Martin, do you?
I think Jacob did extremely well, actually. So I almost just say that I will echo Jacob. But coming back to this green platform, be clear about what is the role of everyone here. I think we can be rather pragmatic and concrete and do it together. So including your ingredients. So I support that.
Perfect, thank you. Håkan?
3 sentences. Trust the power of the market and competition. We will do it very fast. We will take the decisions how. Concentrate on giving us a very credible signal. International, clear, and don't tax electricity.
Perfect, perfect. That was 3.5, I think, at the end.
Tax carbon instead.
Christian?
Yeah, I might repeat them for me, but tax on carbon, get the grid right with green energy, and finally the one we didn't talk about yet, let's make sure that we have the here and now solution, which is the right preconditions for alternative fuels up until the point when electric is taking over.
Short and sweet. And then for the sound bite that's going viral today.
Yeah, okay. We sit in the same boat, industry and politicians. The world is looking at us, the young generation is looking at us. So don't mess up. They really look at us and want to see us make it happen. So we can't fail. We have to make it happen. Don't mess up.
Great, well, you understood the assignment. Don't miss up. You heard it here. Thank you so much to all our panelists for coming here. I know you're crazy busy. Thanks all of you for being here today. Take care.